So I want to send further appreciations from the Action for Everyone podcast community.
Oh, awesome.
Because your interview there was one of the best. So I have a lot to live up to here today. So
That's a
that's one of their best interviews, and they've done a lot of
thank
good ones.
you.
Yeah. So my first question for you today is, when did you know you wanted to be a filmmaker? Is it something like you fell into, or is it was it a passion for you?
I'm going to really date myself horribly here, and I don't care anymore because I don't mind it. My mum rented a Super 8 millimeter projector for one of my little birthdays. I would have been probably 7 or something like that, 7 or 8, and it was compiled. They would only run 10 minutes, the little roll of Super 8, so it was the compiled scary sequences from Alien, and the other one was, I think it was Clash of the Titans or something like that. Ray Harryhausen with the stop motion, monsters. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Hmm.
So I had her just play those 10 minutes over, rewind it, play it, projected against the white screen, and it was a magical moment. And as you get older, you're able to refine your life a lot better. When you're young, in your 20s and your 30s, it's just a blur, like an impressionist painting. You look back at your life. As you get older, I'm in my 50s now, your life starts to take some form of pattern in the past, and you can see the various different paths and the inspirations and the things that triggered a different reaction. And that Super 8, that birthday party, I forgot who was there. I have no idea who came to that party, no idea what presents were given. All I remember is watching these sequences from Alien played over and over, and looking at the mechanics of the projector projecting the light and the way bits of things got, elements got caught in the beam the way they are, when you watch a projector beam. And it was one of those strange sort of moments that's never left me, and is easy now to pinpoint as the start of this madness that is making movies, because it steals everything from you. It takes wives, it takes children, it takes time with children. That it doesn't literally take them, but it's like a vampire that hangs on your back, and just it gives you wonderful moments as well. That's the trouble. So that was it, about 6 or 7, watching Super 8 projector of Alien, the first one, the Ridley Scott one.
No, see, this is why I was so excited to talk to you because one, you mentioned it makes wonderful moments. You make wonderful movies. For this podcast of Awful Press that I host, Alien's kind of like the touchstone. Is kind of the thing that started it. It's my favorite movie, probably, right? Like it's always hard to pick one, and so it's kind of like a huge deal for people that listen that you just mentioned Alien. Like that locked you in. It locked me in. Um, that I didn't have even this to think about before, but like, would you consider doing a movie like Alien, like a not just a sci-fi, but like maybe like a more intense, like claustrophobic sci-fi thriller type of thing?
I'd love to. I'd love to. Here's the thing. I did a couple of sci-fi films at the beginning of my directing career, and they were I put my heart and soul into making what I could do. They were just so difficult. You gotta love what you do. You've got to, the subject matter. You've got to be so embedded in it and have a passion for it. You got to, and I don't anymore. My interests are more, they're broader, and I love World War II. I love this. I love that. I love the Roman era of Boudica. But science fiction is trickier for me because I'm just less passionate about that now. So I have to be very careful. You have to go where you love, what you really, really want to. Because when you make a movie, you're making a relationship with a piece of work for over a year, and you've got to be in love with that for over a year. So if there's any doubt in your mind, it'll surface, and you'll just want to get out the edit room because you're bored of it, and it'll surface in the work that you do. And I didn't want that. I did two at the beginning. I felt that I'd sort of just said yes because they were directing gigs that had paychecks attached, and I wanted to direct. Uh, and they didn't. They were not good, and so I have avoided it purposely. I've turned down offers on financed sci-fi movies. But yes, if I found something that where the script was like, I could find the reality in that, I could find something in there that worked, and it was simply against that background, then I could do it. But you're up against directors who love sci-fi, passionate about it, read it in its novelized form, study it, and those guys are going to make it something that's good. They're going to know the fan base as well, which is an awful thing to say, but they're also going to know themselves and their own love for it. I have a deep, deep, resounding passion for movies, but not terribly many science fiction movies. Although I watched Fallout and thought that was fantastic. So I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, this film, Chief of Station, I'm obsessed with the Cold War. That's when I grew up. Well, I was a boy child, a man child at that point, I guess 16, 17. But I was working on movies. I did a film in Yugoslavia at the time, which was still called Yugoslavia. They had not had their civil war, which also dates me. It was the year before they had the civil war. And we were there. We were making a film about the East and West Germany, you know, sort of Top Gun style film, but in speed cars. They had these spy cars that would go from one side of, you know, the Americans had them that would go and hunt and spy, and then, you know, come back, and they drive so fast they couldn't be chased by the KGB's or the Stasi or whoever the police were in East Germany at the time. They couldn't be chased by their larders, which didn't go very fast. And it was quite a good movie, but the wall came down the following year, and anything to do with East and West Germany and Cold War became very, very out of fashion. So that film never went anywhere. But I remember filming it, and you know, we drove off in this car with American flags on it, with the actors in it. We had cameras, and I was directing a little bit of insert unit, so we were doing the hand on the shifter and the foot on the foot pedals. We were flying along, and we didn't have permits because it's just a different kind of filming there. We flew down one road, and it must have been where they were starting to gear up for war, because there was a lot of that in the air. People were saying there's going to be a war here, and we skidded to a halt in front of just an enormous array of tanks, guys with machine guns, and these guys didn't know that we were filming, and it was a very strange moment, a standoff, and we saw a little bit of the saber rattling. That, you know, we saw a hint of what was going to come over the following decade or so with you know, the just terrible war that tore that country apart, you know. And it's stuck in my head. It's always been there, and I've always, you know, it's fascinated me, the spying and the ability to set a film against that background. Of course, obsessed with James Bond as a young man. So this was a really exciting opportunity to get out and do something, and write a love letter to that genre, and you know, try to do something original that hasn't been done, because you're going into a area that's been turned over. The Bond films, if you have no other spy movies, the Bond films have done almost everything that can be done with that genre, you know, let alone Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or The Man Spy Who Came In From the Cold, or any of these other wonderful pictures that have been made over the last century. So it really is a challenge, and you get out there and you're like, all right, what are we going to do here? Are we going to lean into an homage, or are we going to try and do something completely original? So it was great fun making the movie, and Aaron was fab to collaborate with, and the two of us, I think, you know, basically worked out every day ahead of time, and I'm quite pleased with the way it turned out.
Yeah, see, look, I'm running into a problem here because you're hitting all like my favorite film buttons. You're not letting me answer the questions because you're answering them before I ask them. You're mentioning Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is another huge movie for this podcast. Like, what what am I gonna do here? You're too good at this already, you know? Um, I guess you mentioned your working relationship with Aaron Eckhart. You've got some other leading men here that and ladies that we're fans of. Olga Kurylenko, of course, who is terrific all the time. Shout out Boudica as well. Um,
I'd work with Olga on every movie for the rest of my career if I could. I love working with her. She's you know, throws ideas, and is just such a creative, wonderful force of nature. And I adore the process of working with her. I love the way that she works. Aaron is phenomenal. I'm doing another film with Aaron right now. He is so disciplined, so dedicated, so intense. And usually I'm the one that's the most dedicated, intense on set. And with Aaron, I've got someone else who's doing that, and it's fantastic, because now you're bouncing ideas backwards and forwards in the boiler room, and it's brilliant. It's really good. I meet with him in the beginning of the day. We can talk for half an hour, work out what the day's go, all the challenges, the things that he's thought about, and while he's been learning his lines that don't quite resonate, and we hit the set running, and it's a fantastic working relationship. And it's similar. Olga, I don't spend so much time going over the dialogue with. She knows herself better than I do. She'll come up with a lot of the solutions. She'll come to me and say, look, I'm having a problem with this line, or I'm having a problem with this, and we'll talk it through. Most of the time, she comes up with a solution, but it gives her a chance to talk it through. But the two of them and Alex Pettyfer, it's like it's like playing with a symphony orchestra when you've been used to playing, uh, backyard concerts, and now I've got this amazing. I've got the LA Philharmonic here. They're so good, and when they riff, it's at the highest level. We had numerous scenarios where there were problems that were solved by the cast on this movie just by their inventiveness and creativity and intellect. But one key one was we're in Budapest in winter, gets pitch dark at 3:30 in the afternoon, pitch dark. I mean black, like nighttime. So you've got to compress your day into a 7-hour shooting day, and hope you get it. No lunch. You're doing French hours all the way through. And it's nighttime now, and I've messed my day up. I made one or two errors. I went too long on this shot and too long on that shot, 3 shots like that, and suddenly you find yourself, now we've finished the day, and we've got one of the most important scenes. And Aaron, through his inventiveness, working with Olga, worked out how we could do the same scene at night, and I had no part in it whatsoever. And this is one of the most wonderful things to have happen, to have the cast save your butt when you're absolutely against the wall. We could have called, could have called Rat, could have gone home, never got the scene, never quite figured it out, and walked away from that with a lesser movie. But because of his inventiveness and her ability to work with him, it was phenomenal. So I had a wonderful time making the picture. Felt like a really, really lucky director working with these three, working with the whole cast. It was a phenomenal cast.
Yeah, well, great job in the picture. I really enjoyed it. I really recommend people check it out May 3rd when it opens. I guess one last quick question. You mentioned all this collaboration. You don't repeat yourself, which I think is really hard to do because you can't decide not to, like, you don't get to choose every movie you get to make because of the business. Do you have any recommendations or advice for starting filmmakers to keep that collaboration fresh, like with the people they work with? Advice not to repeat themselves, not to get bored, because obviously we have to love it to do it. But if is there anything else they should keep in mind?
Uh, I don't know. I get asked to give advice quite a lot. Giving advice is tricky. I don't think of myself as someone qualified to give advice quite yet. I'm still figuring out how to do this myself. But for me, I have a short attention span, and I can only do what I love. I've done many jobs as a young man where I did them for the money, and I was terrible at them. I was awful. I got fired from all of them, or horribly let go or reprimanded because I'm just not very good at what I doing anything that I don't have a passion for. I have a passion for movies and a particular, I find projects that I have a deep, resounding love and affection for, and the characters. I want to know what they do. I want to know about them. I want to know where they go. I want to watch this film to come together. I want to watch it in the edit room. I cannot wait to get it in the edit room while I'm on the set. When I'm in, you have to just chase your heart, and it can be difficult because when you're a young director and they offer you a film with a paycheck attached, you're like, I don't really want to direct. It's a terrible script. I'm not sure the cast is up to the task. But and you take these at the beginning of your career and you realize, okay, that didn't work. It's got to be something I love. It's got to be something that and that would be my only advice. It's an art. It is a business as well. Uh, you can get in big trouble for getting that, but you must be passionate about what you do. You must be passionate about the material and working and collaborating with that cast. And if not, you've got to convince yourself to be, and that can be tricky as well at times, and I've had to do that once or twice. So my advice would be find what it is you love and stick to that. And it may be repeating it. There's one director I read the other day said we only, as directors, we keep remaking the same story until we get it right, which I felt was rather limiting and so I sat and I looked. I've got one shelf on my Blu-ray collection, which is just my movies, and I looked at them and said, there are, if someone were wanting to do this, they could find the same elements. And it rather scared me a little bit because that's sort of, terribly limiting thought that you only make the same film over and over against different backdrops and genres, and but anyway, it was just his theory. I'm not sure if I agree with it myself, but be passionate. That would be my advice. Don't be afraid to do it because you love it. The money comes. The money comes. You got to find. When you're directing, you got to. If you choose to go out do that for a living, you have to have some other source of finance anyway to keep yourself at the table, to keep the bills, that paid while you're developing films. So when you come to actually make the film, don't let the money influence you. Don't let all those other superfluous flexes get in the way of the script that you really, really want to see become a movie.
Mr. Jesse V. Johnson, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute treat. It's the highlight of my day. I don't know how I'm gonna get through the rest of the week. This is the peak already.